From the 22 News Plus studio, this is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of In Focus. I'm your host, Patrick Berry. It's always a great day here in the 22 News Plus studios when I get to sit down and have a lengthy conversation with one of our local leaders, one of our local town leaders. And sitting across the desk from me today from the town of Easthampton is its mayor, Salem Derby. Mr. Derby, thank you so very much for joining me today. Appreciate you coming in and spending some time with me.
Patrick, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I ask this of every politician who sits in that chair. Why run for office? In this day and age, where there's so much animosity, I feel like this is I recite the speech all the time, but where there's such animosity against politicians, why did you decide to run for mayor?
Well, I think it was, first of all, it wasn't an easy decision, but, I was a city councilor in Easthampton for 22 years. And the reason I decided to become a city councilor is because I knew when my kids were really young that I needed to invest in my community. I needed to give back to my community. I needed to, when a lot of people are thinking about like bringing your resources in when you have small kids, I was thinking about how do I use the skills that I have to make my community a better place for my family to grow up. Okay. So for me, it was like a very personal decision. And then 22 years later, running for mayor, I loved my job, and I didn't necessarily think that being mayor was the perfect path for me because, there were some stumbling blocks. It wasn't easy. Yeah. Like pay and retirement and all those things had to come into the equation. Plus what you're talking about. It's a pretty high profile job. Right. And, I can tell you,
and it's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job. And I can tell you from some of the emails that I've gotten this morning, everything is my fault. And that's okay. Because I get to talk to people in my office. I get to explain, how things work and the process, and letting me know helps move that process forward. So, but at the end of the day, I will say this one thing is I do feel that local politics can be the antidote to the vitriol and the anger that we see on the national level, right. Because we're neighbors and we're invested in each other. If you think about a neighbor that's struggling, we do meal trains for those neighbors. Right. If we think about, a bake sale or a drive for something that's important in our community, we step up for our community. And I think, local government, well, a lot of people don't love the fact that they have to pay taxes, but we can be kind of a conduit for helping people see those connections. Right. And I think that's really important.
You bring up a very good point in the fact, especially in a town like Easthampton that's so small, you probably know everybody in town.
A lot.
So, and not even just in your position. I have to imagine most average citizens of Easthampton, because it's so small, you get to know a lot of people.
You do.
So you probably don't have the headbutting and the animosity that you may have in a larger community.
I think that's true to some extent. And I think also Easthampton does have a culture. When I became a city councilor, the culture that I was introduced to was, a culture where you can disagree vehemently with somebody, mm-hmm. and you can really go head to head and debate the topic. But at the end of the day, you're going to shake hands and know that you're colleagues and have that collegial kind of respect. Right. And the fact that you're both coming from a place where you care about the same thing, which is the success of the city. And I think when we can see those commonalities, we can see those things that we have in common, the things that we want to make sure that we kind of hold dear together, we can avoid some of those really vitriolic arguments where we come in with our own set of facts, come in with our own predetermined judgment. Right. Because I think that's what's happening. People aren't keeping an open mind. They don't have a growth mindset. And, a lot of people
entrenched in our own beliefs to understand the bigger picture.
And I think it's not, I'm not going to blame anybody for that, because I think one of the things that's really important to consider when we think about that is, where do people get their information? And, we get into information silos, whether it's through TV, absolutely. Whether it's through social media. And you have to understand, it might seem like the person that you're talking to is living on a different planet. And really, they kind of are, because they're getting a completely and entirely different set of information.
But they're living the next block over.
And they're living next door, right? And so you have to find those things that unite you and that keep you connected in ways that transcend that kind of, higher level vitriol in the national landscape.
So you spent a couple of decades on the city council of Easthampton, and then in 2025, you were elevated into the interim mayor position.
Yeah.
And then as you said early on, making the decision to run for full-time mayor is a tough decision.
Was.
Do you think your interim status helped you make the transition from councilor to full-time mayor?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that's really interesting for me, we just had the Connect 351 conference in Boston this last weekend, and I got to be with all the other mayors and talking to them about their transitions and how this is going. And I realized, I was like, wow, I am really kind of far ahead,
right?
Because I had this opportunity to be the interim mayor, and I might not have even decided to run for mayor if I didn't have that opportunity. And the reason for that is I got into that position, realized what I could do in that position, realized what skills you need in that position. And I think you can say a lot of things about someone who gets into a situation and changes their mind. You call them a flip-flopper,
Right.
or whatever. But really, I think a true leader, is someone that can go into a situation, read what is happening on the ground, and then make a decision based on those things that they find.
Right.
And that's that
There's
adaptability.
a difference between being a flip-flopper and gaining new knowledge.
Right.
To make a more informed decision.
And for me, that's what it was. I was gaining this knowledge of, these are the skills that are needed for this position. These are the problems that our city is facing. I know that I'm skilled to be able to help make these problems be less severe, or mitigate them completely, and really help move the city forward. And that, for me, was a tipping point where I said, you know what? I've invested 22 years of my life into this community. I can't see that it needs something and turn my back on that. And that was the moment. So being interim mayor really was a pretty critical piece in this puzzle.
And not a lot of mayors get that chance.
And they don't. Yeah. And I'm really thankful that I did.
It's a different seat when you're in it.
It's sitting on the other side of the table is different. Like, you have a whole different level of understanding of the complexity of the issues. Right. As a city councilor, I would hear about things when they got pretty far.
Right.
And now I'm in the position where I can find those issues and make sure they don't get to the city council, because I can solve them before they get that far. And that, for me, is exciting.
Very good. We are up on our first commercial break. We have plenty more with Easthampton Mayor Salem Derby. Stay with us. We're back in a moment.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello again, everybody. I am your host, Patrick Berry. Sitting across the desk from me today is Easthampton's Mayor Salem Derby. Mr. Mayor, thank you again for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I got to tell you, I don't know what rock I have been living under. I'm 58 years old. I've been living in Western Mass virtually my entire life. I just learned that Easthampton is the basis for Dr. Seuss's Whoville. I had no idea about this, and apparently your town embraces it.
Oh, we definitely embrace it. And, I'm going to say that this is something that we really lean into a little bit, and we love it. I don't know if it's 100% accurate, and I will defer to the historians to make that determination.
I will say, in my research, because when I heard about this, I'm like, all right, I got to look into this.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in Ted Geisel's writing that says Easthampton is Whoville.
Right.
But if you connect the dots.
Right. And I'm willing to embrace that. And so we have a jubilation every year.
You have a what?
A jubilation.
A jubilation.
Yeah. So, and it's great. It's a fundraiser for the Easthampton Community Center. We bring gifts and toys to Millside Park, and we have the Grinch, and we have all sorts of really fun things around it. And I'm hoping that as we move forward, we can lean into the Whoville designation even more, because I think it's a great, whether it's true or not, I think it's a great thing for us to.
Do you have a contest? Who's the best Cindy Lou Who?
We don't yet, but that's a good idea. So maybe we'll look into that.
What was the dog's name on the?
I can't remember. Yes, it was great.
Exactly.
So I got
to play the Grinch though. My family knows me as the Grinch.
So one of the things I would love to do, and this is pie in the sky, but since we're talking about this, we had a Bear Fest in Easthampton years ago that was done through our planning department. I think maybe Holyoke had a volleyball one, and maybe Chicopee had like a C5A where artists would paint statues
exactly.
and they would go all around town. You'd have like a map and you could tour. I would love to see Easthampton do a Whoville inspired,
Right.
like Grinch one, different characters, and have artists and have them all over the city. Yes, we're gonna have to. We'll have to get the rights, but I think it'd be a cool idea.
I love that idea. West Springfield's got the terriers all over town.
Yep.
Westfield, where I'm from, we're the whip city.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to make a statue of a whip, but whatever. I guess we could do Columbia bicycles. Same
sure.
thing, but,
yeah, that's cool.
But Easthampton has a lot going for it, and me and my friends, in our late 50s, we pretty much recognized when we were teenagers, early 20s, Northampton was the spot. Everybody went to Northampton. That was where you hung out. Concerts there, but now you fast forward 40 years. Not even 40 years, but Easthampton has now become that cultural hub, really, of the Pioneer Valley. That's you got big shoes to fill.
It's special, honestly. And for me, like I have a very similar perspective where I grew up in the area, grew up in Northampton, and I would go to Easthampton. And in the 80s, Easthampton was pretty downtrodden. I mean,
absolutely.
The factories were empty. Downtown was pretty tough. I mean, the theater on the main street was, I wouldn't say exactly it wasn't a place for families.
No.
And that was one of the things when I became a city councilor. That was one of the things I really wanted to try to help Easthampton do is move in that direction. We had just gotten the bike path. The Eastworks had just started to redo some of those factory buildings. And one of the things that Easthampton has done over the years is we've really tried to bring new restaurants into the community, tried to bring new music venues into the community, new breweries. We got 3 breweries when we were voted the best water in the country, best tasting water in the country.
There you go.
So if nothing else, we have amazing tasting water. So, which is great.
And what you also have, and I can say that I have taken advantage of this, is you have that rail trail that connects those breweries.
Yes,
and
we do.
It's a short walk.
Yeah.
You park at the Eastworks building, you walk all the way up to Fort Hill and back.
Yep.
It's a great afternoon.
It's amazing. And the other thing is we have so many artists in Easthampton, which is one of the things why getting those factories redone was so important. It created artist spaces. It created artist markets. And we are really trying as a community to foster the arts. We have the Easthampton City Arts, which is part of our planning department. For me, now that I'm mayor, I want to continue that.
Absolutely.
I was on the council. I was part of the team that was able to designate Cottage Street as a cultural district.
Okay.
And when we got the promenade in the downtown,
Game changer.
That was a game changer.
Every town wants that.
And I will say this, I was on city council then. Obviously, I was on city council for a very long time. But, one of the councilors, when we were voting on that to give an appropriation to help that project move forward, said Easthampton will never be a destination. And I wish I could go back and find this video because I remember what I said, which was, I disagree. I think if we do the right things, Easthampton will become a destination. And I think that if we do something like this promenade, and if we continue to support the arts, we will be in the future a destination. And now we are becoming it. And now my job as a mayor is to make sure that we don't fall back, that we move forward.
Keep moving forward.
So one of the things, I have a couple things on my plate that I'm working on right now, which I think are kind of interesting. So I created a proposal when I was interim mayor for a public art festival. And I passed that off to our public art committee through the Easthampton Community Arts. And they're working on it. And so basically it would be a mural festival that would go on, we would hire mural artists to do buildings downtown and on the mills. And really between downtown and the mills is the bike path. And we would have a sidewalk chalk art competition to connect downtown and the mills. And really it's an art project that bridges community and bridges our downtown to our new mills and shows that connection. And really they're not that far.
No, they're not. Like I said,
which is great.
You from the Williston campus to Fort Hill Brewery.
It's not that far.
It's what, mile and a half?
Probably mile and a half. Yeah, maybe 2 at the most.
Right.
And, another thing that I'm working on right now is live music. Because you're right. One of the things that put Northampton on the map was it's amazing live music.
You've
And
got
the
a great-
artists
I
that
mean,
it was able to bring in.
Luthier's is just an unbelievable
And
spot.
so
Folks,
we
if
have
you've never been to Luthier's, go.
Yes, and we have Luthier's, we have Marigold Theater,
Oh, the Marigold.
we have, other music venues. We're working on City Space.
Yeah,
Like, that
City
is gonna
Space.
be special.
How
It's gonna
close
be
is City Space to being done?
so they're working on the elevator right now.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're not that far off.
Good.
It's a work in progress, but it's gonna be, it's imminent,
Right.
within probably the next year or two. And then I don't know if you heard, but we have a new music venue in town. It's called Thick, and it's right on the Rotary in the old Memorial Building. And it's where the massage school used to be, and it's a heavy metal cooperative. And so it's a
Cool.
group of people that bought this building. They have a bar there now. They have a performance space, and they're going to be putting on heavy metal shows.
Okay.
And I love it because I think all genres should be represented.
Absolutely.
And so I'm creating a live music committee this spring. And I'm going to invite musicians from the community to come in and talk about increasing the availability of live music in Easthampton, especially outdoors. And then, part of that is looking at venues. So one of the things I'd like to do is right at the promenade on Friday afternoons, have a little mini show with a band and have our Easthampton media, which is, are really important to Easthampton, film those shows and be able to put those on our local access channel. So local musicians can get exposure. More people will watch Easthampton media. We'll have the mountain and the pond in the background. It'll be beautiful. I'm also talking with Parks and Rec about a pavilion in Nonotuck Park and looking at the availability of us opening that pavilion on summer nights and having live shows in the park.
Nice.
And so we have so much opportunity in Easthampton. It's just
Plenty
being
to
creative
talk
enough to figure it out what it is and then being resourceful enough to make it happen.
Fantastic. We are up on our second commercial break. As you heard, there's still plenty to talk about for Easthampton.
Plenty to talk about.
We're back in a moment.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello again, everybody. Patrick Berry here from 22 News Plus in Focus. Joining me across the desk today is the City of Easthampton's Mayor Salem Derby. Mr. Derby, thank you so very much for joining me.
Thanks
Appreciate you coming in and sharing some of your ideas and thoughts. I totally forgot to ask you this question when we started. Your background. You spent 22 years as a city councilor. What'd you do? You grew up in Northampton. Give me briefly a synopsis of your life.
I can, sure. So I grew up in Northampton. I worked from a really young age for the rec department and really loved working in that capacity with kids and teaching. And I ended up being one of the first counselors for their outdoor adventure camp in Northampton. Loved it. And leveraged that into working for a company that led bike trips all across the country called the Biking Expedition. And so I started doing that. I got to go lead trips in Colorado, Utah, mountain biking. It was amazing. Led trips up the coast of Maine with inner city kids. Absolutely awesome. Leveraged that into being an international adventure guide. So I studied leadership and I studied, outdoor leadership. And it worked out that I was able to find jobs that paid me to travel. So I got to go to Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, Africa. Wow. I led trips.
Well, since you left that job, there must be an opening. So put my name
you
in
want
there.
to go? Right, exactly. I mean, I was so lucky. I just found this job that suited my skills, and it was so amazing. I got to put together a custom trip to Mount Kilimanjaro.
Wow.
I led ski and snowboard trips in New Zealand and backpacking trips. It was
so. Is your
great.
family, were they lifelong Northampton residents?
No. No, it's actually really interesting. This is actually one of the reasons why I was so into the outdoor stuff was, so my mom was from Eastern Mass, from Brookline. And my dad was from Acton, next to Concord. And so they moved out here to go to UMass. And my mom ended up teaching at Amherst High School for 35 years. She was an art teacher. And my dad is a scholar of tribal art. And he was an art teacher at Clark School in Northampton for a while. But he was a scholar in tribal art because his grandmother is Native American, Native American. She was part of the Wampanoag tribe of Aquina Gay Head in Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
And so because she was born on the reservation, I'm actually the only mayor probably between here and Oklahoma or something that is a member of a federally recognized Native American tribe.
Interesting.
Which is kind of interesting. But it really, she raised my dad. and really imparted a lot of her values into him. So he was always really interested in the natural world and, respecting your ancestors.
Trickled down to you and your career.
Trickled down to me, and it really helped me in a lot of different ways. And the irony here is she was an amazing woman. She was beautiful. She was talented. She was the first woman to sing on Boston radio. And so she met my great-grandfather, who was from the Derby family, which was a very prominent family that had settled Concord, Mass.
Oh, wow.
And they had come from Salem. And there was they had to deal with a lot because there was a lot of kind of racism that they had to manage. So they had 5 kids. So I kind of frame my whole, I look at my ancestors and I appreciate what they had to go through for me to get to where I am.
Right.
But the Derbys are even more interesting because the Derbys came from Salem. They settled Salem, Massachusetts. Elias Haskett Derby is purportedly one of the first millionaires in the United States. His little brother, Jonathan Derby, was a privateer. And he was a privateer that was hired by the revolutionary government to go to the Caribbean, raid British ships, come back, and sell the plunder in Boston to fund the American Revolution.
Interesting.
So, it's really, for me, as we look at our 250th
amazing background
anniversary of our country, it means a lot to me because my roots go very deep into not only the how our country was formed, but
before that,
Concord and the Minutemen, that was my family. And so, I feel I have a little bit of a different feel when I think about this because I have so many different connections. And so for me, public service kind of helps those connections come together.
We've only got a couple of minutes left. I want to jump forward a little bit to talk about your time as mayor. You're a newbie mayor, elected in the fall of 2025, making connections both regionally and across the state. Tell me about how you've gone about that and what you hope to gain from some of those connections.
Well, it's been amazing, first of all, let me say. So I've reached out to local mayors to try to forge connections, and that has come back in such helpful ways. Josh Garcia from Holyoke has been super helpful. Mike McCabe from Westfield has been really helpful. GL from Northampton. And, we all were able to kind of sit down together this past week. When we were at the State of the Commonwealth, which was really great. And the governor and LG gave us a really great message, which was, very in line with the things that we're facing. And so, we're hoping that they're going to be really good partners for us as we move forward. But really for us to be mayors together and to brainstorm together, like this snowstorm we just had, we have a text group where we're talking about whether we're closing City Hall, some of the actions that we're taking, so we can really learn from each other. We can really work together as a team. And I think, Western Mass, we got to stick together. So it's not just the other mayors, but it's the other delegations. So, and I'm really working hard to try to get those connections made.
And the Western Mass mayors and Western Mass town leaders are all have similar battles that they face. So having a unified voice when you speak up at some of these mayors' conferences or with our state legislators or our governor, it goes a long way.
It's really important. And, it's great. I'm going to give Mayor Garcia a big shout out because he is now the president of the Mass Mayors Association through the MMA. And so that's a great opportunity, not just for him, but for us, because he's going to give us that exposure to the other mayors and to the legislature, help us unify our voice together.
Fantastic. Mayor Derby, I can't thank you enough for joining me today. Hopefully you'll come back and sit in that chair again and give us more updates on what's going on in Easthampton.
Love to.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.